He doesn't speak in a loud voice.
God is unpredictable.
I started praying that God would bless me with more money when I grew up. You wear shoes with holes in them and you wear feed sack dresses. I thought, oh, I bet my aortic fake valve is not working or it's having a problem. And it's kind of like a bomb going off in your head. He said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "We have never seen that before."
Dear Mo, thank you so much for accepting the invitation to participate this program and share your heart with us today. You are a role model for so many people throughout the world when you speak on KW events on the stage. For me, it's obvious that your words are divinely inspired, so that you're getting it from heaven and then bringing it to the company, bringing it to people. And today, could you share with us a couple stories, maybe even more, that God puts in your heart to share, the words that you got from Him directly? Maybe it was through other people, maybe through Bible, maybe it was a vision or something else, because God is unpredictable. Business related or personal life, what would you like to tell us today?
Well, when God speaks to me, I don't hear a voice. I He speaks to me more in a knowing of what I'm supposed to do. The thought will come into my head and it comes over and over. And when it repeats the thought in my head, I know it's him because I've experienced this all my life, or not all my life, but for a large part of my life. So I knew that something was wrong with me. I had had an aortic valve replaced in June of 2020. And I thought it was that valve. I thought, oh, I bet my aortic fake valve is not working or it's having a problem. So I returned to the Mayo Clinic to have them check me. They checked me and they said, "Your aortic valve is awesome. It's working perfectly, but you're having a brand new problem. And that problem is your tricuspid valve in your heart is leaking." And they told me it was leaking severely.
Oh,
And they wanted to watch it for a few months to see what it was doing. So we watched it for several months. I went back after they observed it, and of course I had echocardiogram an echocardiogram. I'm sorry, I'm stumbling over my words. The technician was very experienced and she took all these pictures of the heart functioning, and then the doctor who read the cardiogram came into my room. And that had never happened before, even though I'd had many of these. And he said, "I just need a few more pictures, and I think I decided to take them myself." And I thought, oh no, I'm worse than I was when I came. Fear struck my heart. Why would he be taking them if I weren't worse? So he took them, he went back and read them, came in, pulled up a chair. He said, "What are you doing?" And I said, What do you mean, what am I doing? He said, you have moved from severe to moderate. He said, now tell me what you've been doing. And I said, my little prayer group and I have been praying. And he said, well, keep it up because it's working. He said, we have never seen that before. So that's one of the miracles you're talking about.
Unbelievable. That's unbelievable.
And then the other thing that I've learned how he speaks to me. I deal or have dealt with many, many problems and issues when you're CEO of a company. You have a lot of problems and issues. When you have a team and you're head of a team, you have problems and issues. That's just the business world. That's just life. In your families, we all have problems and issues. And so I had two owners come to me. They were partners. And one of them said to me, Mo, we think we need to have a business divorce. We're mad at each other all the time, and we've been fussing and fighting about how things should be done and so on and so forth. And they said, we're just really struggling. So would you fly to our area and consult us and help us, show us, see if you can figure out our problem and help us. Well, I fly there. I walk in the meeting with them. And Nara, I have no idea what I'm going to say. No idea at all. And so I asked them if we can begin with prayer. I said, you're Jewish and you worship the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You're Christian and you worship the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You know, the Christian, although the Jewish doesn't believe Jesus was the Messiah, there's a lot of commonality there because our faith is based upon Christ, and he was Jewish. Jesus was Jewish. So they said, yes, you can pray. So we held hands and prayed. One thing I learned is that they were great friends in college. You know, they'd been friends for years. And it was so important to me they not lose that precious friendship they had. So suddenly, after the prayer, Nara, it became clear in my head. See, that thought came in my head, and I knew what to say to them. So what I did is I asked one of them if they would volunteer to go wait in the waiting room while I had a chance to talk to one of them privately to find out what their goals were, to find out, just visit with them so I could begin to see what was the stumbling block in the partnership. So I visited with the first one. Then I had the one waiting in the waiting room come in, and I went through the same visit with him. When I finished, I called them both into the room, and I said, "Yes, you probably need a business divorce." And so then we begin to talk about how that could occur without anger, without animosity, and how it could be done in a way where the buyout, where one of them bought the other one out, and it was win-win for both. Here's what happened. They went back. I told them they needed a really good lawyer and CPA to guide them through the contractual agreement so that it was win-win, so they understood the tax consequences. So they did it in a way where they didn't do something foolish, because if you don't know the laws in taxes, who can keep up with that? It changes so much. And you've got your professional people there to help you. So they got their professional people to help them. They split, and several years later, it was shared. They shared with me that they are really good friends again.
Oh,
So I've experienced it, and I've experienced the voice of God in terms of medical things.
mhm,
I've experienced the voice of God hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times in business.
mhm,
When I'd be in a room with someone and I would pray for wisdom silently, because I had no idea what I was going to say or do after hearing the problem. And then I would pray for wisdom and knowledge. And I would pray, Lord, show me the path the discussion should take.
mhm.
And He would. I've got a lot of those stories. So that's how He speaks to me.
This is amazing. Does he speak to you through other people?
Yes.
Happen to
Sometimes someone will say something, and it's kind of like a bomb going off in your head. And boy, when that happens, I say, thank you, Lord. Now help me learn the lesson.
if we come to life lessons, what are the lessons that you learned? You learned a lot, of course. Could you share with us, I would say, most important things that you learned in this life? The most important lessons you think maybe that people don't understand being too young, not experienced, and then they regret that they did that.
Could I share too?
Of course, million, any.
When I was in the fourth grade, I came home from school one day, and if you've read my book, you know that I did not grow up in a high class strata. I grew up poor, and I got off the bus, walked into my house, and my mother said, there's something I want to ask you to do. And I sat down on our rickety, pitiful sofa. It was old and the stuffing was coming out. And she said, I believe you have some natural, God-given leadership skills because I was a bossy kid. She said, I want you to get on every committee in your little fourth grade that you can. And I want you to do that during grade school, junior high, and high school. In fact, honey, I want you to try to be the chairman of the committee. And I said, why do you want me to do that? And she said, because if you practice your leadership skills and you learn more about leading, then when you graduate from high school, you will be way ahead in leadership of all your other classmates. Well, if you look at all my classmates that graduated with me, I'm the only one who had a leadership position that involved not every country in the world, but that has involved 60 some countries in the world for a total of 160,000 people.
Your classmates must be proud of you.
Oh, they are. They are so sweet. Now, isn't it interesting that what our parents say to us when we're children is really important? And when a parent says to a child, "Oh, you'll never be able to do that," a child may have a big dream and they may live in a poor home like I did. "Oh, you can't do that. You'll never be able to do that. Quit dreaming those big dreams. You're just going to be an average Joe or an average Mo." Well, I just encourage all of our people as a parent, when your child comes to you with some crazy dream, that you know that particular dream might not ever happen. You know, when they say that when they grow up, they want to be able to fly to the moon by themselves, not in an airplane. We all know that's not going to happen. But you know, we encourage them. "Oh, what an interesting dream. That's so much fun that you dreamed that. I just can't imagine seeing you fly to the moon with your little arms." Where it's accepting those little dreams from little children because they'll get realistic as they get older, but to encourage them.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And you still remember your mom told you that, and it sounds like it made a big impact.
But see, you often can't connect the dots
Mm-hmm.
until you live a lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
years.
Mhm.
And I thought of that several years ago, you know, when she did that, and I thought that really played a huge part in my leadership ability because I did serve on many committees and I did become the chairman of many committees in grade school, junior high, and high school. Then, when I went to the university, I was comfortable with that because I'd done it before. And then, when I graduated and I had opportunities to be on boards and committees, I was really prepared for it. And the other story about my dad, this is one of the most powerful ones that I can share. When you grow up in poverty, you have crazy ideas about money. You often have so many limiting beliefs. You never believe you'll get out of that ditch, that deep ditch, when you're poor and you wear shoes with holes in them and you wear feed sack dresses and so on and so forth. One day we were in our pitiful old car and we had gone to the store because my dad finally had enough money to buy some sacks of feed for the animals on our farm. And he would always take me with him because I would get to pick out which sack of that food for the animals that we would buy because it was back then, it was made of cloth. That was the cloth that my mother made my dresses from. She took that cloth and would make my dress, and that's why he would let me pick it out. And so after we finished buying the sacks of feed for the animals, he took me over to the Carnegie Library. And Andrew Carnegie grew up poor. And then when he was older, he made all this money in steel. And he wanted to give the money away before he died. So my father told me that beautiful story how he took care of his family first, and then he had $350 million left, which back in 1917 or nine was just a huge amount of money. It would be equivalent to what, $3 billion today. And he built these libraries in the small towns across our country. And that was his legacy. And then my father looked at me in the eyes and he said, "Honey, I always want you to respect the wealthy because they usually give back and do great things for their communities or their friends or different people or hospitals or whatever." And something happened in my brain and in my soul. And as a little child, I was about 8 years old, I started praying that God would bless me with more money when I grew up than I needed so I could give it away, like Andrew Carnegie. Well, look what happened. And I'm able to do that. I give a lot of money away. And what he did in that moment, I couldn't figure it out until I was an adult and I could connect the dots. But what he did in that moment is he made it okay for me to want to have money so I
Oh,
could give it away. The
mhm.
second thing he did with that story is he made it very clear that people who have money should give it back. Look what Andrew Carnegie did. He gave a great blessing all over the United States with that money. He had a committee. He set up a committee. They bought the land. They built those beautiful buildings. They bought the books, put them in the library. They hired the staff, put them in the library. They ran the library, I think, for 1 year. It may have been more, it may have been less. I can't remember for sure. And then they gave those libraries to the cities. What a gift my father gave me. Because you see, there are so many parents who say, well, don't, yes, we're poor, and no, you can't have that, and don't expect it. They they don't give their children hope and the thought and the idea that maybe they could grow up because money is only good for the good it will do. Money is nothing
It's just an
except for the good it can do. But a dollar bill laying there or a $1 billion bill laying there, it doesn't do any good while it lays there. It only does good when you give it away, or you take care of your family, or you help someone who's sick. Do you get my point? That's when the dollar bill or the $1 billion bill becomes good, is because it's doing good for others. You're able to help others through that gift of money.
so money can be good or bad. You choose, right?
That's right.
Yeah, that's just instrument that we use. And like as let's say knife in the kitchen, it can be for good or
It
for
can it can help you make the most wonderful
ah,
meal. But I know a person who was killed by someone stabbing him with a knife in a kitchen because someone became so angry. You're right. You're exactly right.
this is so amazing, Mo. Thank you so much for sharing. My heart is so full now.
Well, it's my honor to get to meet you and to do this for you. So
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Mo. And I can't wait to share with on our YouTube with many people. And I believe it's gonna encourage them and to help them to believe that God is miraculous and He's ready to answer our prayers. Thank you.
Well, see, when you ask Christ to come into your life, the Holy Spirit lives inside you and guides you. And the way he guides me is he doesn't speak in a loud voice, but
And maybe it's good He doesn't.
a strong thought comes into my head and I pay attention to it. And I've learned to identify those thoughts.
Thanks to God. Thank you, Mo. We love you.
Okay.